You know, for decades, we've been told a simple story. Artificial sweeteners give you all the sweetness with none of the calories, none of the guilt. But what if that whole story is a lie? Today, we're going to dive into a groundbreaking study that suggests your diet soda might actually be part of the problem, not the solution. I mean, the promise has always been incredibly tempting, right? You get all that sweet taste you're craving, but without the calories or the sugar spike. It really does sound like the perfect health hack, especially if you're trying to manage your weight or if you have diabetes. It's supposed to be sweetness, completely guilt-free. But here's the question, the one that really kicked off a scientific revolution. What if that supposedly harmless choice, that little packet of sweetener in your coffee, isn't harmless at all? What if, and this is the crazy part, it's actually contributing to the very problems it's supposed to fix? And that question, well, it leads us straight into what I like to call the sweetener paradox. See, for years, the science on this has been, well, a total mess. It's been pointing in two completely different directions at the same time. So on the one hand, you've got these major health organizations saying, yeah, go for it, use sweeteners for weight loss. And the logic, it seems solid. But then on the other hand, you've got these huge studies that seem to link them to the exact opposite, like, weight gain and a higher risk of type 2 diabetes. So which one is it? Are they a helpful tool or are they a hidden danger? That's the contradiction scientists were determined to solve. So to try and cut through all that noise, a team of scientists designed a really brilliant experiment. They took the question out of the messy real world and brought it into the controlled environment of the lab using mice. And what they found was a complete and total shock. Okay, so the expectation here was pretty straightforward, right? Mice given zero-calorie sweeteners like saccharin should be healthier or at least no worse off than mice getting actual sugar. Yeah, that is not what happened. The reality was just staggering. The mice drinking the artificial sweeteners developed significant glucose intolerance. Let me put that in plain English. Their bodies got worse at handling sugar, way worse. And this chart right here, it shows you exactly what I'm talking about. When they were given a shot of glucose, the mice that had been drinking saccharin had a much, much bigger blood sugar spike. Their glycemic response was way off the charts compared to the other group. They had literally developed the exact metabolic problem the sweetener was meant to prevent. So the huge question became, why? How is this even possible? The researchers were totally stumped. These sweeteners aren't even absorbed by the body, so they shouldn't have a direct effect on your metabolism. There had to be some kind of middleman, right? A secret agent in this whole operation causing all the trouble. And it turns out that secret agent was living inside all of us the whole time. Let's talk about the gut microbiota. This is that massive community, literally trillions of bacteria living in your digestive tract. We now know this internal ecosystem is an absolute powerhouse, and it influences everything from our mood to, critically, our metabolism. So the researchers had this light bulb moment. What if the sweeteners, since they aren't digested, are messing with these gut bacteria instead? Okay, so to prove this theory, the scientists designed this absolutely brilliant experiment. Just follow these steps. First, they confirmed it again. Mice on saccharin get glucose intolerance. Okay, then they gave those mice antibiotics to completely wipe out their gut bacteria. And boom, just like that, the glucose intolerance disappeared. But this last step was the real smoking gun. They transferred the gut bacteria from one of those sick sweetener mice into a totally healthy mouse that was raised in a sterile bubble. And get this, it's incredible. That perfectly healthy mouse instantly developed glucose intolerance. This diagram here shows that final killer step, the transplant. It proved beyond a shadow of a doubt that the metabolic damage wasn't just associated with the gut bacteria. It was literally transferable. The sweeteners changed the gut bugs, and the changed gut bugs wrecked the host's metabolism. All right, so this is all wild stuff in mice for sure. But here's the billion-dollar question, isn't it? Does any of this actually happen in people? To find out, the researchers took their investigation to the next level. So first up, they looked at data from a pretty big group, 381 people without diabetes. And just like those confusing studies from before, they found a clear link. People who used the most artificial sweeteners were more likely to have a higher weight, a bigger waist-to-hip ratio, worse blood sugar control, all the classic signs of metabolic problems. But you know the drill. Correlation isn't causation. They needed something stronger. So they set up this small but really powerful trial. They took 7 healthy people who didn't normally use sweeteners. And after just 1 week of giving them the max recommended dose of saccharin, the result was, well, incredible. 4 out of the 7, that's more than half, developed a significantly worse glucose response. The other 3, though, showed no change. And they split the group into 2, the responders who reacted badly and the non-responders who didn't. Okay, so why the split? What's the difference between these people? Well, the answer, once again, was found in their gut. It turns out the responders and non-responders had different gut bug communities to begin with. And the saccharin seemed to really throw the microbiomes of the responders out of whack in a very specific negative way. All right, to put the final nail in the coffin, they did their coolest experiment one last time. They took the gut bacteria from a human responder after that week on saccharin and put it into those germ-free mice. And bam, those mice immediately developed glucose intolerance. Then they did the same thing with bacteria from a non-responder. And what happened this time? Absolutely nothing. The mice stayed perfectly healthy. This was the final proof. It showed that the way you react to these sweeteners is all down to your own personal, unique mix of gut bacteria. And you know, the authors of the study, they did not pull any punches in their conclusion. They wrote, our results link NAS consumption, dysbiosis, and metabolic abnormalities, thereby calling for a reassessment of massive NAS usage. I mean, that is a huge statement to make in a journal like Nature. So, what's the big picture here? What does all this mean for you and me? This research doesn't just call one ingredient into question. It really forces us to rethink the whole idea of what healthy sweetness even is. So let's break down the key takeaways from all this. First off, artificial sweeteners are not just passing through your body doing nothing. They are absolutely interacting with and changing your gut bacteria. Second, for some of us, maybe a lot of us, that change can lead to the exact problems we were trying to avoid in the first place. Third, and this is so important, it's not a universal thing. It all depends on your unique microbiome. And finally, this just blows up the whole idea of a one-size-fits-all diet, doesn't it? What's totally fine for me might be a real problem for you. And all of this leaves us with one last huge question to think about. This research is telling us that how our bodies deal with food is deeply individual, and it's all determined by this invisible world living inside us. If my gut ecosystem is totally different from yours, does that mean my perfect diet is also totally different? It really seems like the future of nutrition isn't going to be found in some generic food pyramid, but in understanding what's going on inside each of us, right down to our guts.